thrill seekers. That was a little bit of the old Sam and Dave hit. You might know it from the Blues Brothers version, Soul Man. And that's what I want to talk to you about, souls. Probably every person who's at least taken a comparative religions course where Buddhism was mentioned knows that Buddhism has within it this theory of anatman or anatta, depending on if you're looking at the Pali version, which is anatta, or the Sanskrit version, which is anatman. It's the same word. And it means no atman, often translated as no soul or no self. Let's see what the Buddhists were reacting against. And for my copy of for the Bhagavad Gita, which I wanted to quote, I got this version that I found in one of those little libraries, where people give books away. Somebody was giving this away in their little library, and I picked it up. But I compared it to some other versions of the Bhagavad Gita, and it's pretty standard as far as its translation goes. I always think it's bad, like a bad sign when some author puts his face on the cover of a book. That's just, I don't know. If you ever see me doing that, you know that I've gone completely nuts. But we're going to look at some verses from the Bhagavad Gita, and this is from chapter 2, starting at verse 10, 2:10, if you're reading along. And the scene is that you've got this war between two factions. I've forgotten their names. And one faction is led by a warrior named Arjuna. And Arjuna's chariot driver is Krishna. And Krishna is God. It's later revealed in the story. Spoiler alert. And Arjuna is the individual person, and his chariot is led by 5 horses, which represent the 5 senses. So it's kind of a metaphor of this, unless you're into the Hare Krishna philosophy, in which they're just like biblical literalists over there. They think everything should be taken literally. So in their version, it's not a metaphor for anything. There's literally 2 guys in a chariot and 5 horses, and that's it. But anyway, that's what's going on. And it's kind of a civil war. So the people on the other side of the battle are relatives and friends and family of Arjuna. So Arjuna tells Krishna, I'm not going to fight. And this is Krishna's response, which gets into the Hindu concept of Atman. It's complicated, but this is the sort of older Hindu concept of Atman. So let's just read it. Then Krishna smilingly spoke the following words to the grief-stricken Arjuna, as they were placed in the midst of both armies. Bhagavan said, Bhagavan is Krishna, you grieve for those who should not be grieved for, and yet you speak words of wisdom. The wise grieve neither for the living nor for the dead. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor did you, nor all these rulers, and nor shall any of us ever cease to be hereafter. Just as the spirit in this body passes through childhood, youth, and old age, so does it pass into another body. The man centered within himself does not fear this or is not deluded by this. It's weirdly phrased here. Does not fear this or deluded by this. That's weird English, but anyway. And then we go, O son of Kunti, that's Arjuna, contact with sense objects causes heat and cold, pleasure and pain, and these have a beginning and an end. O Bharata, again, this is Arjuna. They always give, this is like Russian novels where everybody has 10 different names. O Bharata, these are not permanent, endure them bravely. O Pursur, I don't know how to pronounce that. Chief among men, again, Arjuna. These surely do not afflict the brave person who is centered and complete. Pleasure and pain are the same to him, and he is certainly ready for immortality. The non-existent has no being. That which exists never ceases to exist. This truth about both is perceived and concluded by the seers of truth. Know it to be indestructible, by which this body is pervaded. It is capitalized, so it is the thing, the Atman. Nothing can destroy it, the imperishable. It, again, is capitalized. These bodies of material energy are perishable. The energy itself is eternal, incomprehensible, and indestructible. Therefore fight, O Bharata. Bharata, again, is Krishna. Neither understands he who takes the self to be the slayer, nor he who thinks he is slain. They don't understand if they think that is true. He who knows the truth understands that the self does not slay, nor is it slain. The self is neither born, nor does it ever die. After having been, it never ceases not to be. That's interesting English. It is unborn, eternal, changeless, and ancient. It is not killed when the body is killed. O Partha, again Arjuna, how can man slay or cause others to be slain when he knows it to be indestructible, eternal, unborn, and unchangeable? Just as a man casts off worn-out clothes and puts on new ones, the self, that's the Atman, casts off worn-out bodies and enters new ones. Okay, that's all you need to hear to get the basic idea. Now, let's contrast this with Shobogenzo. This is Bendowa, which, as you can see here, is translated by Nishijima and Cross as a talk about pursuing the truth. And you can find the bit I'm going to talk about on page 13 if you're looking at the printed version. Okay. Someone asks, "It has been said that we should not regret our life and death, for there is a very quick way to get free of life and death. That is, to know the truth that the mental essence is eternal. In other words, this physical body, having been born, necessarily moves toward death. But this mental essence never dies at all. Once we've been able to recognize that the mental essence, which is unmoved by birth and decay, exists in our own body, we see this as the original essence. Therefore, the body is just a temporary form. It dies here and is born there, never remaining constant. But the mind is eternal. It is unchangeable in the past, future, or present. This is to know this is called to have become free of life and death." And I'm going to skip over some of it and get right to Dogen's response. "I say, the view expressed now is absolutely not the Buddha's Dharma. It is the view of the non-Buddhist Seneca. And Seneca is not Seneca, Seneca, which it sounds pretty much the same the way most English speakers say it. It's not the same guy as the Greek philosopher. It's an Indian philosopher who's, I don't think anybody really knows exactly who Seneca is, but, he's referred to in the Garland Sutra, apparently. According to that non-Buddhist view, there is one spiritual intelligence existing within our body. When this intelligence meets conditions, it can discriminate between pleasant and unpleasant and discriminate between right and wrong, and it can know pain and irritation and know suffering and pleasure. All these are abilities of the spiritual intelligence. When this body dies, however, the spirit casts off the skin and is reborn on the other side. So even though it seems to die here, it lives on there. Therefore, we call it immortal and eternal. The view of that non-Buddhist is like this. If we learn this as the Buddha's Dharma, we are even more foolish than the person who grasps a tile or pebble thinking it to be a golden treasure. The delusion would be too shameful for comparison." And then we have more stuff basically just saying, don't believe this. It says, this is just a wrong view of non-Buddhists. We should not touch it with our ears. Nevertheless, I cannot help wanting to save you from this wrong view, and it is only compassionate for me now to try. So remember, in the Buddha Dharma, because the body and mind are originally one reality, that's the important part, the saying that essence and form are not two has been understood equally in the Western heavens and the Eastern lands. Western heavens is India, Eastern lands is China. And we should never dare go against it. Further, in the lineage that discuss eternal existence, the myriad dharmas are all eternal existence. Body and mind are not divided. So that's the important part. We don't have to worry about what those lineages are. Body and mind are not divided is the important part. And in the lineages that discuss extinction, all dharmas are extinction. Essence and form are not divided. Again, essence and form are not divided. He's basically saying that in every form of Buddhism, this is the way it is taught. How could we say, on the contrary, that the body is mortal but the mind is eternal? Does this not violate right reason? Furthermore, we should realize that living and dying is just nirvana. And living and dying is samsara. That's the Chinese characters used to indicate samsara. And samsara is usually means this world, but it also means living and dying, literally. Buddhists have never discussed nirvana outside of living and dying. Moreover, even if we wrongly imagine the understanding that the mind becomes eternal by getting free of the body to be the same as the Buddha wisdom, which is free of life and death, the mind that is conscious of this understanding still appears and disappears momentarily. That's the important part. Sorry, I ran out of breath. The understanding still appears and disappears momentarily. It is not eternal at all. Then, isn't this understanding unreliable? We should taste and reflect. The principle that body and mind are one reality is being constantly spoken by the Buddha Dharma. So how could it be, on the contrary, that while this body appears and disappears, the mind independently leaves the body and does not appear or disappear? If there is a time when body and mind are one reality and another time when they are not one reality, then it might naturally follow that the Buddhist preaching has been false. Further, if we think that life and death are something to get rid of, we will commit the sin of hating the Buddha Dharma. How could we not guard against this? Remember, the lineage of the Dharma, which asserts that in the Buddha Dharma the essential state of mind universally includes all forms, that's another important part, describes the whole great world of Dharma inclusively, without dividing essence and form, and without discussing appearance and disappearance. There is no state, not even Bodhi or Nirvana, that's enlightenment, that is different from the essential state of mind. All dharmas, myriad phenomena, and accumulated things are totally just the one mind. This is echoing what Obaku, aka Huang Po, says. All dharmas, myriad phenomena, and accumulated things are totally just the one mind, again Huang Po, without exclusion or disunion. All the various lineages of the Dharma assert that the myriad things and phenomena are the even and balanced, undivided mind, other than which there is nothing, which is almost exactly a quote from Huang Po. This is just how Buddhists have understood the essence of mind. This being so, how could we divide this one reality into body and mind, or into life and death and nirvana? Life and death, again, is hyphenated, life and death, and it means samsara. We are already the Buddha's disciples. Let us not touch with our ears those noises from the tongues of madmen who speak non-Buddhist views. So he's pretty solid on that idea. So body and mind are one. That's the important thing. When I first heard Nishijima Roshi say this, I sort of came at it from the materialistic kind of worldview I'd been steeped in, and I was like, oh, body and mind are one. That means I'm just a body. But as you can see when you actually read the thing, what he says is he quotes Huang Po and says, mind is everything. But he also defines mind as fences, walls, tiles, and pebbles, the sun, the moon, and the great earth. This is something he says a few times in Shobo Genzo. So the idea of body and mind being one is a really important facet of Buddhism, but it's something that is widely misunderstood, or wildly misunderstood. I'm not sure which one I'm going for there, but it's misunderstood a lot, especially by me, especially by everyone who encounters it for the first time, and it's something that I've been working on for a while. The division of ourselves into mind on the one hand and body on the other side, whatever, I'm mixing metaphors or whatever, it's really strong in our culture. I guess it probably stems from Plato. I'm not a philosophy major. I was for a semester, but then I gave it up. So I don't know where it exactly comes from, but I know that it's really strong. And what fascinates me is how I see that this belief in a soul, that we are a immortal soul encased in a body, is so strong in our society, especially here in the United States, that even atheists believe it. Even people who are just so anti-religious, you can't say anything around them that has anything to do with religion, or they'll beat you up. Even these folks will cling to this idea of a mind or a soul or something, of a true person, of a true self that is different from the body. But Buddhism has the idea that body and mind emerge together, and this gets really tricky because we have to use the word mind to mean two separate things, and because we don't really have the terminology for it, and anyway, the whole object of language is to divide things up, and the whole object of Buddhism is to show you that things are originally undivided. It gets tricky because on the one hand, mind, when Dogen's talking about it, when Huang Po is talking about it, is something other than the individual mind. So let's cling to this idea, or let's stick, not cling, we shouldn't cling to it. Let's stick to this idea of the individual mind or individual soul. So as far as that exists, it comes up together with the body. The body and the individual mind are not two different things. So your true self is not something that is different from your body. Your bodily self and your true self are exactly the same thing. And I think this is an important thing to get across, because I think a lot of people, even within Buddhism, accept that there are certain exceptions, and that there are times when the mind and the body are two different things, and you should like transform your body to conform to your mind or something like that. But that's not the case. If you appear in the world as this is something that is very deep, even within your individual mind, even within your mind as an individual. This is what you are. It doesn't mean that this is all you are, this body and stuff, because there's this whole other, like I say in other videos, there's this whole idea of self, Jiko, in Dogen's philosophy, which is this kind of transcendental self. But this transcendental self has no form, no individuality, no nothing. But it does, in some sense, have a personality. But this is, let's skip that. I'm just going to throw that in and then not even explain it. But this is you. This is you. So that's the important thing to get across. If you are going to go for the Buddhist project, one of the things that is really strongly established within the philosophical conceit that is Buddhism is that body and mind are the same thing. That there isn't this soul that is separate from the body. There isn't this idea that you find in the Bhagavad Gita, that you find in a lot of Christian teachings. That I don't know that you really find this in the Bible itself. But in Christianity in general, there's that idea, and that idea has, as I said earlier, so pervaded our society that a lot of people who reject Christianity even find themselves believing this. So that's the idea. You don't have a soul. So Sam and Dave, sorry, you're not a soul man. Anyway, I'm going to leave it at that and let you figure it out. Maybe we can talk about it later. You can leave a comment and say, you didn't explain anything, Brad. But if you want to donate to me not explaining things to you, you can go to the URL that you're seeing below, which is hardcorezen.info/donate. That is hardcorezen.info/donate. There you will find links to my PayPal and Patreon accounts. Those are my main way of making a living, and I appreciate your support. But as always, you don't got to support me if you don't want to support me. We will see you next time. Have a good time all the time. Bye. Hey Ziggy, do you believe in the duality of body and mind, or do you believe that body and mind are one thing? Are you doggy in both body and mind? I'll let you ponder that a little bit. All right, talk to you later.